All right. Thanks for coming back. This is Jeremiah with the Bigfoot Society podcast. And we have the privilege of having Aleks Petakov from Petakov Media with us. Aleks, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And I mean, this is as real as it gets because you are directly back from the woods
That's very
tonight,
true.
right?
I
Like,
was
that's
just out
awesome.
there. Yeah, I was just out in this area that had some strange activity in the past, but we can talk about
Wow.
that in a little bit.
Very cool. Very cool. Do you mind starting out by making maybe doing a quick synopsis of who it is you are and what it is that you do?
Sure. My name's Aleks Petakov. I am a documentary filmmaker, sort of a cryptid researcher, and I say researcher in the sense that I sort of research the subject of cryptozoology. So I'm not necessarily trying to find DNA evidence to prove something is real
Sure.
or not. I like all aspects of it, and that includes getting into individual subjects, whether it's through documentaries or writing about it or just doing research in general. So yeah, that's basically it. I'm a filmmaker, adventurer. I love the outdoors. I am a big hiker as well.
Hmm.
So I've just always had a good time out in the woods, and I think cryptozoology, looking for Bigfoot, that sort of stuff, it goes hand in hand with just being out and enjoying nature.
That's awesome. That is very cool. You've done a few really cool I'm sure you've done many cool documentaries, but the ones I'm familiar with are your Champ documentary. It's very cool. If you want to hear more about that, definitely listen to the Cryptid Campfire episode that you were on. If you don't listen to those guys, you should. That was a great episode.
That was a lot
And
of fun.
you've got an awesome documentary about mountain lions in the Northeast, correct?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
latest feature documentary about mountain lions and mystery big cats in the New England area. Just sort of released right as the whole COVID thing started in March.
Hmm.
So it was unfortunate timing because the premiere got canceled, and like 4 screenings I had planned for the spring were canceled as well. So we're hoping to
Oh
actually have an
man.
actual premiere at one point during the summer and then
Yeah.
go from
Yeah.
there.
Oh wow. It's in so we were checking it out a bit ago, and I want to make sure if people are going to watch the trailer, the documentary, it gets there. It's graphic in there. There's a warning at the beginning where it's like, "Hey, there are going to be images," and I was like, "Oh yeah, okay," and no. It gets a little graphic, and I look over, and my 4-year-old is like, "Oh, Dada," and I was like, "No."
Oh
So
boy.
no, but hey, you did your due diligence, and the warning is there. So if that doesn't make you go check it out, you need to go check it out, guys.
Yeah, and
It's
it's nothing
it's
nothing
great.
too scary. It's just
No, it's not.
nature. It's basically, if you've seen a
It
bad
is.
nature documentary, a lion ripping
Yeah,
apart a zebra, it's nothing worse than that.
yeah, totally, totally. Um, so let's see. Your history. You have kind of been in different parts of the world. Is that correct? You grew
Yeah,
up in other country, and
yeah. So I was actually born in South Africa. That's where my
yeah.
parents went to in the '90s when their home country of Yugoslavia,
Mm,
Southeast Europe, started falling apart during a civil war there that lasted a while. So they kind of went to South Africa for a little bit. South Africa was as well transitioning politically from apartheid to sort of a
hmm.
more democratic system, even though it's still a bit shaky to this day. And
Sure.
I was born there. We didn't stay very long. I was very young when we left. We came to the United States. South Africa just became very dangerous.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
they were talking about it possibly being a war there too. So that's the last thing
Yeah.
they needed after just escaping another war.
Oh, I
So
know. Yeah.
beautiful country. I've only been back once. I wish to go back again someday, hopefully, if it calms down a bit. But yeah, so that's my history. I kind of came over to the U.S. I've been in the U.S. since then. Sort of grew up always kind of traveling around and really interested
Okay.
in exploring different cultures and different areas of the world. And I think cryptozoology has always kind of fit into that a little bit because every
Hmm.
corner of the world or anywhere I go, I'm always looking for those local legends.
It's there. It's there. That's
Definitely.
yeah. Oh man,
It's
that's what I love.
universal. Humans
It
all
is.
have
Yeah.
stories of strange creatures or legends,
Hmm.
mythology. I mean, since people have been living in unorganized societies, even, cave
Oh yeah.
paintings, all sorts of
Yep.
stuff.
To seek out the unknown
Definitely.
around, tell the stories around the campfire. It's so great, right? So your base currently is in New England.
Yeah.
Is that
So
correct? Yep.
yeah, New Hampshire,
Okay.
sort of Boston area. That's most people think New Hampshire, oh, you're up on a mountain. I am often up on a mountain, but I am closer to the Boston area, and that's sort of New England's small, so you can get around pretty quickly. So I say kind of New England based because I'm often moving around different parts of New
Yeah.
England.
Um, the pictures you're putting up on Instagram, I mean, you're not kidding when you're saying you're climbing mountains. This is crazy stuff. Like stuff where it's like if you take a wrong step, you're falling off into oblivion. Like I mean, you do some wild stuff. And does it look like you do drone work as well? Is that true?
Yeah, so I do, kind of just my own photography on the side. I've always been interested in that, and going to these natural, beautiful locations lends itself perfectly to always having a camera or something on me. And whether it's
Totally.
trying to do some night photography or a drone, a couple of the mountains I recently hiked, the good conditions. We didn't have much wind. Usually there's a lot of wind. We have pretty bad weather up in the White Mountains and a lot of the mountains here. So you
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes get winds that'll blow you right off. So a drone wouldn't
Oh
last
yeah,
couple
totally,
times.
man.
You get
Yep.
lucky, and then you see a lot of wildlife, that sort of stuff. And one of the hikes I just did, actually, I just posted about it. It's called the Watcher, and it's right actually near
Mm.
in Franconia Notch, which is a
Yep.
beautiful little kind of highway goes right through the area where Betty and Barney Hill abduction happened, actually in
Oh
that
yeah, yeah, definitely, yeah.
part of their
Mm-hmm.
encounter was in that notch. And it was something called the Watcher, and it's this cliff face that if you look at it from a certain angle, it has like a face, and it's actually
Mm.
directly across the highway from the Old Man of the Mountain,
Old Man
which
on the
New
Mountain.
Hampshire is famous for.
Yep.
Unfortunately, he
Fell
passed away,
off.
fell
Right.
off the rock
Exactly.
in like
Yep.
2003. So
Yep.
this is, they call her the old woman of the mountain, the old widowed
Okay.
woman of the mountain, or the
Very
Watcher. But
cool.
it was some of the gnarliest terrain getting up there. We had pretty much, almost vertical at one point, rock slides. There was a way around it. We didn't see it, and we went straight up. And I'm like, this is, if this was any steeper, we would have needed rock climbing gear, basically.
Oh no, you were totally you were almost there. Like
You might have seen that on Instagram that I posted
yeah.
that, but it was
Oh
wild.
man. Um, so plot twist. I don't know if I've ever told you. I actually grew up in New England. So
Yeah, I think you
I
did
grew up
mention it a little
in
bit. Yeah.
a little town called Northfield, Massachusetts, which is right where Vermont, New Hampshire, and Mass meet
Yeah.
in that area. And
Yeah, that's the
beautiful
kind of
area.
the Berkshires and stuff is out there, and
Yep.
you're not too far from Keene. I can imagine Keene, New Hampshire.
Keene, yeah, Keene is where you go to get a job. It's a little, it's a big college town in the middle of the
Yeah,
mountains. Nothing around it.
famous for the
Uh,
Pumpkin Festival and the riots that
that
ensued
is
there.
true, and the filming of Jumanji starring Robin
That is very
Williams.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can still see the pair of shoes up on the wall, the mural that they had painted. But
so
um,
awesome. I love the Madame Cherie Forest is real close there as well, and there's these kind of ruins there, and you can climb
mhm.
up on these cliffs that have a great view of the Connecticut River, and you can see Brattleboro, Vermont, right from that cliff, and that's, I think,
Yeah, I went to
Pisgah,
school in Brattleboro. Yeah,
yeah, Pisgah
yep,
Forest or something
Pisgah.
like
Yep,
that. Yes,
yep.
yep, beautiful area.
Oh my goodness, yeah. So you said is it Southern New Hampshire that you're based out of?
Yes, yeah, southern New
Okay.
Hampshire. So where most people in New Hampshire live, New Hampshire's kind of funny because it's sort of the same shape as Vermont, just flipped the other way. We kind of joke around. We're very similar in that way, but we have twice the population. We're about a
Yeah,
million,
totally.
1.3 million. So most of southern New Hampshire is people who work in the Boston area, northern Massachusetts, and there's
Hmm.
just a lot more in southern New Hampshire. And then you have middle New Hampshire, which is kind of the lakes region, and then a little bit
Yep.
of the White Mountain region. And then you have Coos County, the northern part, which is most of the White Mountains, and then the Great North Woods, which is by far the least populated area of the state, and that's where all the
That's my
hiking
favorite up
and,
there. Yeah.
yeah, that's the
Yep.
area that is just filled with moose.
Mm.
I mean, there's some areas that have more moose than people.
Shout out to Colebrook, New Hampshire. If you ever
Yeah,
been to Colebrook.
I was just there last
Well,
week,
you
actually.
were.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. They have the place where you can get your motorcycle blessed at the shrine
Oh,
in that
really? I
area.
didn't know
Yeah,
that.
it's a big deal. But no, I mean, I remember going up there as a young kid on family vacations, and we would literally be driving at dusk, and we saw 12, 13 moose in an hour. No
Crazy.
big deal. And
Yeah.
there'd be things where I remember my dad's driving down the road. This moose comes out of nowhere, comes right towards us, and it's like he had to throw it in reverse because so many people die a year with the moose going over the top of the car and get squishing the people because
Crazy.
they
And you
just
hit
don't
one of
care. Yeah.
those. It's just not. We saw
Yep.
9 between 2 days, and we were up
Wow.
near Pittsburgh. So we were supposed to have a wedding actually pre-corona days. We were supposed to have
Yeah.
a wedding that week, so we decided to still use that time, and they had just opened up Airbnbs and that sort of stuff for New Hampshire
Oh,
residents.
okay.
So we're like, let's just
Yep.
go up north for a little bit, and hung out for a couple of days and drove on the famous Moose Alley, which goes from
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh to the Canadian border, and that's like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah, yeah.
largest concentration of moose in that area. And we drove some of the gnarly logging back roads that go into Maine.
Oh, wow, really?
I got like a nail in my tire. I just had to get that fixed.
Ooh, buddy, you're
But
taking your life in your hands, man. Don
yeah,
Fendler style,
I
you know?
love
Like,
those
yeah.
areas though. Driving that kind of
Yep.
stuff in Maine and New Hampshire is just so cool because
Yeah.
there's nobody around you for such a
Mm-hmm.
long time, and you get to see some. If you don't have a 4-wheel drive or a truck, you pretty much can't get to some of these spots
You're
either.
you're as my kids say, you're Dunzo Lorenzo. I have no idea how he came up with that, but he's hilarious.
That's great.
Um, so you've got a really cool opportunity because when I was out there, I wasn't really into like the Bigfoot stuff and cryptid stuff a lot. It kind of clicked when so I moved out to Central Iowa, right? That's where I am now. But you're out in the middle of some crazy stuff because I remember, well, so I grew up at a summer camp. We did a lot of hiking. So I've done a lot of hiking out with my dad on the Appalachian Trail,
Right.
Connecticut, Massachusetts. And there's times when you're in the middle of those forests and you can feel something watching you. And at the time, the worst I could think of was the mountain lion. Could have been, but it could have been something else. I wasn't thinking, could be Bigfoot. You don't know what's out in those woods. Like it gets deep and dark. And I don't know if you've been in the area. So Franklin County, Massachusetts, where I'm from, there's some places you can go like Warwick, Massachusetts, or like the Satan's Kingdom part,
Oh yeah, right. I've heard of that.
lower Vermont. It gets wild and wild. And like you go like far western Massachusetts out in the Berkshires, man,
It's wild
you
country.
gotta check those out. It's like, oh, sorry. um, Let me know if you get a text. So I almost said something. Um, but so I'm doing a thing where I'm doing commentary on the Trail of UFOs. I didn't know you were in it. And you
Awesome.
come out of nowhere, and I didn't know this side. Do you mind sharing the story where I didn't know you guys had like the sightings of you know that UFO? Like I would
Yeah,
love to hear that story directly from you. That's really cool. It's down Pennsylvania,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, it was like central western Pennsylvania is the best way I
Okay.
could describe it. Near a place called Dubois.
Mm,
Um, Man, it was. I know I was never really that into the UFO stuff. Really, I'd always kind of have been interested in peripherally. I was much more on the crypto side of things: Bigfoot, Loch Ness, Champ. So there was I have a couple of really good friends here in the New England area who are colleagues of mine as well. They do paranormal research. Paul and Ben Eno. They have a radio show out of Rhode Island called Behind the Paranormal, and they've been like
oh,
a
cool.
father son duo. They've been investigating this stuff for decades. I mean, Paul trained with, or I guess kind of worked with Ed and Lorraine Warren back in the day, and
Mm,
has been in it since like the 60s and 70s. I mean, the guy's an old timer. He's really been his stuff, and his son's worked with him. And they have had
yeah.
this show, and they have a pretty big following. And so one of their readers contacted them about an area they were researching in Connecticut, which was like one of these kind of flap areas, as they call them, where there seemed to be
Yeah, totally.
high
Yep.
strangeness,
Yep.
creatures and UFOs, strange things. One of the readers contacted somebody they knew, and somehow it got down to them. And they started going out to this area in Pennsylvania to investigate this
Mm,
property where people were claiming to have tons of activity. So they had been for 5 or 6 years, and I came on in 2018. Yeah, 2018 was the first year I actually went. So I've been twice so far. What primarily interested me was the Bigfoot stuff. So they said that there were
yeah.
people on the property who had seen Bigfoot,
Oh man.
and one of our group members claimed to have seen one there as well, who wasn't really into the Bigfoot stuff. So that was kind of interesting. But I
Wow.
went into it kind of thinking, this flap area stuff, I don't really know. It doesn't really sound very scientific to me. It sounds kind of, maybe I was a little more closed off to it.
Mhm.
So we went into it the first year, and we interviewed 3 generations of a family that was having Bigfoot activity in their property. I'm like, wow.
Regenerations.
Yeah, so there was
That's
a
amazing.
mother, her son, and then his daughter, and they all lived in
Wow.
this little area that was near a
Yep.
wooded ravine. But the thing
Sure.
is, their property was down towards the ravine in the woods. Up the hill, 3 or 4 other houses were all their other relatives. Now, the relatives at the
Mm-hmm.
top of the house were seeing shadow people. In another area,
Oh.
they were seeing UFOs, and the people
Oh
in the
my
area
goodness.
report seeing black helicopters, strange things in the sky, glowing lights, all sorts of stuff. So the first year, we
Man.
saw like a glowing red orb in the woods just for like a few seconds. I didn't really think too much of it. It was just kind of weird at the time. We sort of thought, well, if we'd gotten a better look at it, we could have figured out what it was. And then it wasn't until 2019, so about a year ago exactly, we were back there. It was end of May, and we had all been split up in different parts of the property, just examining it, doing kind of night investigations, hanging out.
Okay.
Uh, what we would do is we'd go for 3 or 4 days, and then we'd have a town hall meeting and meet with
Mm.
locals and ask them about their sightings, and that's where we'd find out a lot about the Bigfoot stuff. So, like I said, I was mostly interested in the Bigfoot stuff. It was a perfect night, though. We decided to all go up to the top of the house there, the property that we were staying at, where they had a little kind of fire pit. We could just sit and watch the stars. We were
Okay.
all watching the stars, and it was after midnight at one point that there was not a single cloud in the sky, perfect star cover. There was this, what appeared to be a cloud that had like a illumination light in it,
Hmm.
started just moving in slow motion. And at first I was like, well,
Oh
that
man.
cloud is in front of the moon, but we didn't see the moon until now. That would be really weird. And it just started in slow motion, was moving kind of like a leaf in slow motion. And we're watching and we all start realizing, and then 5 of us begin to watch it. And a smaller, more defined light literally flew out of it at high speed and
Oh
then right back into it. And at this
yeah.
point, we're freaking out. We're like,
Oh
what
yeah.
was
Totally.
this? And some of these guys, we had a guy with us in the group who has interviewed dozens of people who have claimed to have had alien encounters, and he's
Okay.
he's um, without mentioning him who he is, he works
Hmm.
for some states doing stuff with veterans and psychology and that sort of
Oh
stuff. So
wow.
he
Okay. Yeah.
he has
Yeah.
like that professional background. So each member of the group
Sure.
had a different sort of area that they were interested in. I was more of the camera guy and the
Hmm.
more on the Bigfoot side. But we're all watching this thing and we're just like, man, this is just amazing. We watched it for about 5 minutes. We saw again another light fly out of it. And at one point, one of our members, Paul, there went to grab his night vision binoculars that he had just gotten recently, and he began filming it. He actually filmed it for about a minute and a half, I think, and we
Wow.
actually got it on video. And in the video, you can see this hazy object moving, and there's a small circular object that stays parallel to it the entire time. And you
Oh
can see
man.
the full footage on my website. We haven't really published it much. It was in on the Trail of UFOs. That's what
Hmm.
it was in there, but it hasn't. We've had it looked at by one of the chief video and photo analysts for MUFON, and
Oh
he's a
wow.
friend of ours, and he's usually shoots down 90% of the stuff that gets sent his way. It's a lens flare, it's something that's been
Hmm.
seen, and he genuinely could not figure out what it was. So
Wow.
we're still not really sure, what exactly it is, but it was kind of what we saw. And we watched this thing as it went over the horizon. It then stopped, and a few minutes later, we saw from right to left an object fly through the sky at a tremendous speed, something you wouldn't imagine. And it was the strangest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. Oh
Absolutely.
man.
We all recapped, and it's funny. We actually had another experience the night after, and this one I don't really talk about as much anymore because it's kind of out there. I didn't talk about it, at least on the. Oh, I did talk about it on the Trail of UFOs, but I don't think that part was included. It's just a very long story, but it was about 24 hours after this. We
Okay.
all were in this garage where we were staying. That was where my gear was. Everyone was getting ready to go to bed in different areas, and
Hmm.
um, we heard this just high pitched noise, like a beep. It started going, and then all of a sudden, we're looking around, who stepped on a piece of gear, who activated the fire alarm. I'm looking at all my
Yep.
camera gear. They're like, oh, is that your drone? I'm like, no, my drone doesn't make that noise. It sounds
Hmm.
like it's right above us.
Oh
But we're all
no.
scrambling to see what's going on, and mind you, there's the owners of the house are sleeping in the bedroom right above the garage, and
Yep.
there's a door that isn't fully closed where another group member is just laying there on his phone. He's like getting ready for bed. So we
Yeah.
were listening to this noise, and it's almost like it moves outside. I don't know how to describe
Oh
it.
man.
We go outside, and it sounds like it's in the sky, and you can hear it like moving around in a sort of pattern, or at least like in different
Oh
spots.
weird.
Two cell phones are recorded at this point, so we have the audio captured, and it
Okay.
gets to the point where it kind of, it's almost like it's circling over the house, and it goes towards this wooded area, and then all of a sudden it just stops. It didn't fade out. It went from like beep, as if someone just hit an off switch. It didn't fade out like you'd expect from
Wow.
maybe like a Tibetan singing bowl. It'll sort of fade out
Mm-hmm.
eventually. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah,
closest thing.
yeah.
And so we have audio of that as well. I mean,
Oh
it just was
man.
strange. It happened right after that UFO experience. We still couldn't figure out what it was. And the day after that, we had our town hall meeting, and we were so
Mm-hmm.
excited to tell all the townsfolk about it. And they weren't really that intrigued, I guess, because they're like, oh yeah, that kind of stuff happens pretty much all the time around here. Very
Which
commonly.
doesn't mean that it's not weird. Like,
Exactly. But it's funny
like
because,
that's the crazy thing. Oh yeah, who cares about that?
yeah, they were just kind of like, yeah, we've had stuff like that happen very nonchalantly. And it was very interesting for us, of
Wow,
course.
that's even
So,
cooler.
right. So it
Yeah.
was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. I don't know what it was. And I always say this, it truly fits the definition of UFO, unidentified flying object.
Oh
Um,
man, yeah, yeah.
it could have been some secret government technology. I really don't know. I've never seen anything that can fly in the way it did, like a slow motion,
Mm-hmm.
having things flying off of it and back into it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
And it was like
Yeah.
a cloudy haze kind of thing. That's what it really reminded us at first. And the object that flew off of it was defined and smaller, a lot
Hmm.
smaller. And it kind
Okay.
of circled under it and went right back into it. And we
Wow.
watched this thing, and we were just blown, and we got it on video. I mean, it's not just a wild story, and we just don't know what exactly it was, and we don't claim to say it was extraterrestrials or interdimensional travelers or whatever. It was just truly a UFO.
Wow. That's awesome. Like all of that add-on information to that story. That's stuff I had no idea about it. Like that's very
Yeah,
cool.
it's a
Yeah,
long
thank you
story,
for
but that's,
sharing that.
of course, that's kind of, it just makes more sense like that. And like I said, I never was really interested in that UFO side.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of opened up my eyes a little bit to the UFO subject, and that's when I got involved a little bit more. Not really researching, but I definitely have reconsidered some of my previous positions. Not that I was
Oh,
closed
sure.
off
Yeah.
to the topic at all. It wasn't really my cup of tea. I was more interested, just like I'm not really into ghosts. I always joke around people. I say, being hanging around in a dingy
Right.
basement in some insane asylum does not sound as fun to me as being in the woods looking for Bigfoot. That's just
Yeah.
me.
Right. Yeah, exactly. To have a horrible segue, tell me more about the project you're about to embark on later this year. From what I know, it's still later this year with the Chasing Legends crew.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's something that's been kind of in the works recently. A lot of
Yeah.
fun. Nash Hoover, who's a pretty similar guy to me, I guess. He's just from the Midwest. I'm from the East
Mm-hmm.
Coast, so he's a
Yep.
young guy, filmmaker, adventurer, loves the cryptid subject. He's had this program called Chasing Legends for quite a while, and they just sort of, it's exactly what it sounds like. They go and investigate different cryptid legends or strange locations, and just sort of investigate it from that first person perspective. What's going on to them, and so they've this past year they've been working on a season one. So
Mm-hmm.
originally he contacted me because they were going to do a show on the Pukwudgie, which is here in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes. Yes. You
Yeah.
remind me.
So
Keep going. Sorry, I have questions I'm supposed
no,
to ask you.
absolutely.
And that reminded me. Keep going, though. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he hit me up because he's like, "Oh, I know you're out there in New England. Like we're planning on coming out there. Would you want to help us?" I'm like, "I'd be happy to. I don't really know much about the Pukwudgie myself as a researcher. I've done Bridgewater Triangle stuff, but mostly Bigfoot. So I put them in touch with people that were more into that. So my friend Paul, my friend John Horrigan, who actually narrated Lines of the East, he researched in a previous life the Bridgewater Triangle pretty intensely and was involved with a lot of the key players and Lauren Coleman and everyone.
Yep.
So I put them in touch with people who have dealt with that subject for a while. And then they were like, "Well, would you want to like be kind of like a guest investigator?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'd love that. I mean, it'd be a lot of fun to go back to the Bridgewater Triangle. I haven't been in a while." And then we started working together. We had this really funny shoot. Well, it wasn't funny. It was great, but we had some funny experiences while there. We had this insane Motel 6 experience that was a bonding experience right
Oh
there.
man.
That
Yeah.
put us together as like, we're going to talk about this story in 20 years.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
So
That's good.
they
Yeah.
came, and it was funny because the timing was so perfect. It was the weekend, or no, it was like 4 days before Massachusetts declared a state of emergency for the COVID.
Oh
That's
yeah,
when they were
totally.
here. So they flew in
Yeah.
from Minneapolis, and they were
Yep.
here in
Yep.
Boston. I showed them around Boston. We'd go to check into this Motel 6, and it was like, I don't know if it was like a drug den or something, but there was like, we lost power 6 times. There was a snowstorm all of a sudden. There's like people with pit bulls walking around the hallway, and
The
people having loud
hallways.
parties and kids
Ooh.
screaming. And we're like, we need to get out of here. So we
Yeah,
fled to
totally.
another hotel, and we were all just like, this is some wild stuff. And it was comical. It's comical looking back on it, but that was a bonding experience. But aside from that, we had a fantastic shoot. We hung around the Freetown State Forest. We talked to people in the area. And then
Okay.
after that, we kind of said, hey, Nash is kind of like, hey, would you want to like maybe join as a researcher with us for the first season? I'm like, I would absolutely love that, especially some of the things you're planning on investigating. Like those are,
Mm-hmm.
I've either investigated them or I'd love to investigate them.
Oh yeah, totally.
So we started a Kickstarter here back in the end of May, and within a week we reached 100% funding,
It's
which was
dominated.
so it's
Like,
great.
congrats, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. So
Yeah.
we're doing some stretch goals. We're actually going to do like a poster. So if you guys
Awesome.
are so inclined, every little cent helps just make it a little bit better. So
Yep.
we have puck
Yep.
wedgies done. That's basically, I mean, it's all filmed and everything. The next expedition we're hoping to do is the Mogollon Monster, Arizona,
Mm.
which is sort of a Bigfoot kind of thing. So
Okay.
that's very different terrain.
I need to
Uh,
look that up. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's a
Mm.
very cool one up there in northern Arizona. So it's not in the
Okay.
deserts of Arizona. It's in the what's called the Mogollon Rim, which is this called rim country, and it's basically this
Hmm.
canyon area. And in the
Oh,
top of the canyon, it's all pine, woodland forest.
nice.
So that's where a lot of elk and mountain lions and other forest
Okay.
creatures actually live, and it's in the mountains. So it's not really like what you'd expect. You think Arizona cactuses, Wild West, that sort of stuff. It's very mountainous
Mm-hmm.
actually. So they have reports of a Bigfoot-like creature. So we're hoping to do that here in July, and then after that,
Okay.
Champ, of course, personal favorite of mine. So that one
You'd
will be,
have to. You have to.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one will be great. And
Yeah.
then
Oh
another
man.
one will be the Rougarou, so which is the werewolf type creature of Louisiana.
Oh. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And
Uh.
I've been down there once in Louisiana, and I've actually been to the town where that festival, the Rougarou Festival, happens. So
Wow.
we're hoping to get down there. So it's like in terms of terrain, that's why, like, the extra funding was needed just in terms of transport and all that kind of stuff, because we're dealing with in March frigid snow conditions in Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
July, Arizona, you got rattlesnakes and everything that wants to kill you in the woods. Same as
Yeah. Oh
Louisiana,
yeah. No joke. Yeah.
massive area like Lake Champlain. So we're trying to present very different terrain and different types of cryptids. So you're not just
I like
getting
it.
like
Yep.
Bigfoot type creatures. You're getting a puckwudgie, which is totally unique in terms of cryptids. You're getting a lake monster, a swamp monster, and a Bigfoot type creature combined with a little bit of you know mountainous sort of terrain in the desert. So it's pretty awesome. So it's been really cool. I actually was just talking to Nash earlier today. As of this recording, we're trying to figure out for the DVD cover, doing some like art and stuff like that. So it's fun. Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of it, and they're a great crew, and we just worked pretty well together on that initial shoot. So we're happy to move forward doing that.
So it sounds like you're very excited to answer Nash's question on how excited you are. So we'll leave that at that.
Definitely.
Also, do you care to comment on how many puckwudgies you've seen? Cryptid Campfire is trolling you hardcore. It
Oh,
sounds like, because that was addressed in the
I've seen a whole
episode. So,
tribe. Okay, and they
so hey, if you want more of that action, go listen to their episode, guys. Come on.
no, they're good guys. Eli
They
and
are.
Alex,
It's a good one.
fantastic.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Definitely.
Um, One thing I had the thought of was, after I listened to that episode, I went and looked at the Kickstarter, and I was like, the amount that you're trying to raise does not feel like it's enough. So literally, don't take that it's already raised and stop donating money for, kickstarting. Like, if you haven't yet, please go, because you guys have high goals. Like,
Absolutely.
hats off to you. Like, the Louisiana thing by itself, you could run into some crazy stuff down there.
Definitely, yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the thing. I mean, we did the puck wedgie thing pretty much out of pocket. So is much of the Mogollon,
Okay.
and we're
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
sort
Yeah.
of at the point where we're like, we'd like to keep the quality going. So we're hoping if people want to get involved, what's cool about it is obviously with Kickstarter, you have the different rewards. So you kind of become part of the crew, and you become part of the. You get put in the credits. There's also we have
Mm-hmm.
the kind of there's a couple executive producer roles that have been filled in, so those people will actually get to put their
Awesome.
input in and like meet with us when we have our virtual meetings, and kind of maybe if they want some aspects of the mystery that are explored, they get that opportunity because they're in a way they're part of the production. So it's just making it more interactive, and the way I look at it is it's cryptid content for people, made by people who are interested in cryptid content. We're not LA producers that just want ratings. We actually care about the subjects a lot, and we're passionate. And we'd be doing this if even if it weren't for this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
We'd be
Yeah.
getting
Totally.
out there
Yep.
anyway. So
Yep.
we're just kind of putting that. And what I like for me of this project is it's my sort of first really getting out there as an investigator more. Putting my sort of time
Yes.
I've spent out in the outdoors and putting that to
Mm-hmm.
the test in terms of searching, because most of my work in documentaries, which I love, has been without myself in it. So I put myself to the side. I just focus on the subject and try and cover it from that perspective as like a historian or a documentarian. But this will be just me straight up saying what I think about a certain situation or what we should do, that kind of thing. And as well as Nash. And that's kind of been his approach. So it's definitely different for me. And that's why I'm on board as well, because I like kind of changing up a little bit. I always like
That's
having
awesome.
my hand in different sort of areas, so to speak.
Very cool. Um, Believe it or not, we are kind of starting to get to the end already. I would love you to share about your amazing show that you have Monday nights, correct? On YouTube. That's the day of the
Yeah.
week usually that happens.
Yes, yeah, it's pretty much every Monday night. So far, we've had like 8 or 9 episodes. So it's my YouTube channel, Sasquatch Out of the Shadows, and that's a YouTube channel I've had since like 2016, where I just decided to put Bigfoot interviews and interviews with witnesses and kind of short documentaries that I don't really put out in a sort of official
Mm-hmm.
format, just kind of get them out there. And since the whole virus thing started, everyone was at home. I'm like, this would be a perfect time to start a show I already kind of had an idea I wanted to do for. And it's just interviewing people that I've always wanted to talk to, or personal friends, people like Seth, uh,
Yeah.
Jeff Meldrum, other folks that I just find interesting. We're going to have Jonathan Wilk on very soon, Cliff Barrickman.
Oh,
Uh,
very nice. Yeah.
so just folks that people will hear of and people that you've never heard of. And that's what I like, just
Yeah.
engaging conversation. So it's every Monday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we take audience questions. So we always get some people asking fantastic and intelligent questions, which is awesome because we're
Very cool.
talking to these researchers and really kind of, you're not, if it's somebody you've seen on TV 20 times, this is your chance to kind of interact with them in a way.
Yeah. No, I mean, every week I look at the guests you get. I'm like, Petakov, you done it again. I don't know how you did it, but hats off to you.
Thank you.
You got some connections that are amazing, and I'd say keep going with that. You were making some
Yeah.
quality content. What are if let's say if I'd be surprised if people haven't heard of you before this episode. But if how can people also keep up to date with what you're doing besides
Sure.
that?
Yeah, the easiest place is petakovmedia.com, and that's spelled
Okay.
Petakov media.com. It's got links to everything from Facebook to YouTube to Instagram, links to projects, links to the Kickstarter for Chasing Legends to On the Trail of Champ, anything you want, it's all in there. That's the easiest single place to get it.
Very cool. Very
Also, and I
cool.
can talk about that thing if you want
Oh, okay, that's our screen cap. Do it now. We have like 3 minutes now. Quick.
Sure, absolutely. So at the end of the month here in June into July, we're going to start filming on the Trail of Bigfoot 2. So this is the continuation of Small Town Monsters on the Trail of Bigfoot. This is going to be sort of a feature documentary, but it's going to focus on the Northeast. So we're going to start in Whitehall, New York, and we're going to be in Massachusetts / Maine, and kind of filming in those areas, talking to Bigfoot researchers, all sorts of stuff. I'm not going to go into too specifics, but the crew will be Seth, myself, Mark Matsky, Andy
Mm-hmm.
Matsky, as well as Adam of Small Town
Yes,
Monsters. So it's going to be a pretty skeleton crew compared to the usual sort of crew
that's
that's
fun.
on there. But
Yeah.
that's the whole thing with On the Trail of. It's
Oh
much more of like
man,
a run and gun style. So we're really excited. I'm super excited to get out to some of these locations like
so
Whitehall and
exciting.
back into Maine. So keep your eyes peeled for that,
Oh
guys,
man,
because
my goodness. Yeah. Where in
that's going to be
Mass
fun.
though?
So we're just going to
Okay,
be
if
interviewing
you
some
can't say, that's
folks.
fine. Okay.
Yeah, we're
All
going to
right.
be
All right.
interviewing some folks in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not going to spend too much time in Massachusetts, but it's going to be definitely
Okay.
part of the film. Yeah.
Oh man, that is so cool. Uh, wow. So northeast section of the U.S.,
Yes.
all the Bigfoot encounters and goodness of there.
We're giving
I'm
it some
excited.
love,
Yeah.
especially
Oh
Maine,
man.
which doesn't get covered as much. Whitehall,
No,
people
it
might know
doesn't.
about, but we're going to cover it all. And we're just hoping to really show people, just the natural beauty of these areas, too, because it's
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Oh my goodness, that is such a cool thing that you could share with the listeners here. Thank you for
Of
Alex for
course, yeah.
sharing that.
The text
That's
came in, and
awesome.
I'm like, yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
I almost said something by accident halfway through because Seth hadn't given the go ahead by text. So thank you, Seth, because I know that you listen to Bigfoot Society, right? But I love Seth. He's a good dude. He's a good dude. We had a
Absolutely.
good chat in the past. But again, I would love to have you back on in the future.
Sure.
We can kind of have a wrap up of Chasing Legends
Yeah,
and
that would be great.
also on the Trail of Bigfoot too. But hats off to you, sir. You are doing some great work.
Appreciate
Maybe
it.
I can see it at the Van Meter Visitor Festival if you guys come. I don't know.
I would.
Nash
I
always
think
does.
I know he goes. I will try my
Yeah.
best. I don't know when that is, but September or in the fall.
Yeah, it's around September. I've
Okay.
been there for the last, it's like 20 minutes from where I live, so I'll be there.
Oh,
But
nice. Yeah,
yeah. And
I would
you
love to.
yeah.
If not vicariously, I will be there for
Oh yeah,
sure.
totally. Jay Pachochin was there last year too from Wisconsin, and Linda Godfrey. Every year it gets a little
Awesome.
bit bigger, so it's a good time. But again, we'll chat later. Have a good one, Alex. Thank you again for coming on. Have
Absolutely.
a good
Thanks
one.
for having me, man. Have a good night.